Well, good morning, everybody. It's me. I'm back, Robert Phoenix, for another edition of the Astro Weather. And it is the 27th of August in the year of our Lord, 2023. And wow, is it getting crazier out there by the day? Like what is the upper limit of crazy? What is the upper limit of weird? We're going to explore some of that on 15 Minutes of Flame and give you an update of the good weird, the bad weird, actually the evil weird, good weird, and just the plain old weird. And there's plenty of weird to spread around. Weird, of course, another word for word. Isn't that interesting? That sometimes conversations take weird turns and have at times hidden and double meanings, which in and of itself can be fairly weird, right? So let's see what the stars let's see what the stars are telling us today. You go into, where is it now? Astro Weather. Here we go. I got a folder and everything. I did this shit ahead of time. I'm like, let's get on this Mars and Virgo train. Let's get on it. Let's be Charlie, the choo-choo engineer with the Mars and Virgo train. Here we go. All right. That's what we're looking at. 7:27:23, 8 a.m. on the button. Sun at 4 Leo. So we're in the first decan, the most direct and unfiltered rays of the sun beaming down upon us. And trust me, I can certainly feel it here in Central Texas. The sun separating still in that kind of a wide opposition from Pluto, but we've already kind of gone through that. I think here's what I think, okay? With the sun Pluto opposition, the sun illuminates Plutonian kinds of excesses, right? I mean, that is, if we go back, not even Plutonian excesses, just Plutonian events in our lives. So if we look at what happened out of Martha's Vineyard, right, with Pluto, which represents death, and the sun illuminating into the Plutonian spaces of the dark waters of Paddleboard Pond on Martha's Vineyard, and still no word from one former president, Barack Hussein Obama. Let's get into the moon. We talked about this yesterday, and Scorpio moons are always intense. There's just kind of deep psychic undertow with the Scorpio moon. And today we got this fixed T-square, right? So the moon is squaring up against Mercury and Venus and opposing Uranus. And something has to give today. Something has to give. Like this is a breakdown, a breakthrough kind of day, just in terms of emotions. Like I think for some people today could represent a bit of a high water mark, in that there's too much, right? And everybody has their limit. I don't care if you're the toughest motherfucker on the planet. You got a limit. You have a limit, whatever that limit is. Y'all have it. So today we are entering the zone of those limits, and how much we're willing to take, how much we're willing to stand for. I just watched a video, and it doesn't come from today, but it comes from this idea. I'm going to play it over on 15 minutes. And it's this woman who's on a subway in New York. She's Asian. She looks like she might be Korean. And you know what she's doing? She's tearing down these kind of cardboard advancements that run along the kind of the ceiling line of the subway on both sides, and she's tearing them down. And she's not tearing them down because she's crazy. She's tearing them down because they're deplorable, right? What they're doing is they're propagandizing and fetishizing behavior is and mind control at the most, right? So that's a woman who has had it, right? She's not even from this country, but she understands like what's going on. That's one person's. Now they'll come back in and, they'll probably figure out how to put those things in, plastic or polyurethane or whatever. So you can't do that. It's like, oh, the audacity. There's also a movie from the 90s called Falling Down with Michael Douglas. And he has one of those moments, right? Everything just falls off the table for him. And he's like, fuck it. I'm just trying to get by. All I care about is seeing my kid. And anybody that gets in my way, they are going to pay the price. And what's interesting about Falling Down is sort of the day itself and the weather and how unbearably hot it is and how the sun just seems to be this it's another character in the movie. It's relentless, right? It's almost like it's in some ways driving him mad. And I feel like there's some of that going on with our sun today as well. So, Mr. Defense in Falling Down is that, there's something here with this energy. This is an energy where something has to give. If you wind up finding yourself in some sort of catharsis, it's okay. I'm just here to tell you, catharsis is okay. And usually what happens with catharsis is that people reach a certain level of like agitation or frustration, and then they punch through with anger, right? Rage. A lot of times it's rage. And and what's lurking beneath rage is grief. It's grief, right? That is the wellspring of rage. And it's interesting how we had a whole summer of raging in 2021, but there was no catharsis, right? There was no grief. It hadn't gone enough, right? Like if they had burned everything around, they have then would they some cathartic release? Oh my God. And then wept for everything. Is that how I think we can avoid that? But then again, I've always been an optimist at heart. Nature has been essentially fused over. So if you're in the housing market, what do you? Are you going to jump in? Because there is no guarantee crime is not coming down. It is not coming down. What will come down? Maybe, but that means that what you mean is that housing market individual buyers. And we know that individual buyers are these corporations that have much bigger ideas and plans for those properties. So from a perspective, I think you're going to see people on both ends, both buy and sell. Like if you've been thinking and waiting to become a little softer so you get some money out of your years ago, crime go up, maybe we should reasonable. So these things, I was watching go back and I watched the news from years ago, and retrograde. It was a Venus moment last night, and it was the NBC Evening with John Chandler. Gerald Ford, they were trying to get the housing market right, like he had been stagnant. They had all this inflation, and it was really because the prime lending rate was up around 14%, like that was ridiculous. I think they eventually wound up vetoing from the House, essentially stimulate the market. And Gerald Ford was never smart. Rockefeller and all these other people behind him who were basically baking it all up for him. So he came up with his own plan, and that plan, of course, was passed. Presidents never veto things anymore. At that point in time, the president had a veto power. Now there's hardly anything around presidential veto. Anyway, I'm just telling you this because the average house price was $30,000 in 1976, and the average was around $325 per month. So if you had bought property in the 70s, if you had managed to buy some property, you're right, and contrast that to now. This is Venus retrograde moment, and everything just absolutely exponentially inflation all across the board, right? All across the board. So this is again part of the mix. And I know there are people that want to have a house, thinking about a house, and this is kind of emotional tipping moments. Here's what I think. Today, specifically, moving into the evening, we have a Moon Neptune trine. There is another kind of route out of this heightened sense, fixed frustration. It's more like going with the flow. Right, and you're just in your horn. What you see an exit, and it's like that exit, right? Instead of dealing hardcore with it, sometimes you have to punch through the wall, break through. This is other, and there is of like I'm going to go. My emotion will take me with the least pause, right? We have pressure and pressure and are the two mutually exclusive. That's no. Let's up a little bit. Let's say you said crisis, catharsis, and then you reset your emotional compass, and then you flow, and you're back in the flow of your life. And even the sun, to some extent, as we before, is supporting that. So so it doesn't necessarily have to be one path or the other. The two can be integrated, but there can also be, wow, man, do I have to go through this? Or have to go through this emotional drama? You have to figure out where you are in the spectrum. I'm just going to go with the flow here. I'm going to open this up. Moon, Pluto sextile as well. So there can be a bit of here's what I would say. Here's what I would say. If your ego, your vanity, your pride gets really exacerbated and in the way, that's going to contribute to this T-square, right? I mean, that's kind of part of it. Part is sometimes you just have to blow the cork, right? This is a part of it. And if you understand that part of the equation, the release with the Moon and Neptune and the Pluto sextile is much easier. It's like, you know what? I don't have to do that. I don't have to like defend my position or defend my ego or defend my emotional choices. Like there's real crisis, and then there is um crisis that's born out of like attachment to a certain sense of entitlement around who we and what others are not recognizing in our lives. Right. That kind of goes along with all of this. And then the other side, it's like, you know what? It's not that important. It's not that important. And when you pivot like that and just kind of lean into that moon Neptune trying, oh, there's Pluto waiting right over there. And then you get resources and deep, deep, deep transformation. You're going to, today is one of those days where the transformation of the emotional body is in the air one way or the other. Right. And there's kind of a hierarchy. Some people are in crisis. Some people are at a high water moment. Boom. It's going to happen. You know, as the once famous, well, I guess Eric Clapton is still famous, but as he once famously sang, let it rain, right? Let it rain. And then the other side of this is the egoic structure or the egoic struggle that could lead to a collapse and a catharsis, right? And all you had to do is not keep it real. Just understand it and say, this is not my issue. This is not my problem. This is something that I've attached to, and I don't need to attach to it. There is potential for a higher way. So there's a mix today, right? This is a big bandwidth day, and you can fall into any place in that spectrum today. So if there is a crisis and things are hot and things are ill and they've reached a boiling point, today is when it blows up, right? Like there is that potential for today. And maybe you need to do that. Maybe you need to do that. If you see yourself engaged in egoic struggle, attachment, and identification, then you have this other option here, which is like, I'm tapping out. I don't need to do this. And it may not be easy because these fixed energies are like, well, you should stand your ground. Stand your ground. I even got into it today, right? There's somebody who I follow on Twitter, and they follow me back. And I have to say, like, one of the things that bugs me are victory lap astrologers. I'm just saying, like, you know, I could have a lot of wins if I wanted to go on Twitter every day. You know, I could just chalk them up if I wanted to, but I don't want to. Every now and then, I think, you know, maybe it's the Virgo in me. Maybe if I was a Leo or a Sag, I'd be letting everybody know about my wins, right? It kind of bugs me a little bit. So I was about to like chime in on this one Twitter feed. And I'm like, you know what? Just leave it alone. You know, and I was going to do it indirectly. I was going to put something on Twitter. I'm like, just leave it alone, right? This is not my battle. This is, I do not need to be engaged in this, even if it's indirect. This is what I'm talking about, right? We all have it. We all have the capacity to do that. And look, you know, there's pride. People should take pride in what they do. Pride and endless victory laps, I think, are two different things. But I get it. It's also a marketing thing. And I've never been that good at marketing. Not a lot of air in the air. So there's a lot of objectivity. That's what happens when we don't have a lot of air. You know, we're consumed by the dominant elements that are in the sky. So we're talking about fire and earth and water, big water, Saturn, Neptune, the moon. Those are big water movers right there. And look at all the fire in the sky. You know, we're dealing with heat, we're dealing with summer. That's all part of the mix, isn't it? Let's see. Anything else? Anything else? I think that's about it. Oh, did I get into the yod? Let's see. Do we have a yod? Yes, we do have a yod. It's Mercury. Mercury is right on Regulus and will be for the next couple of days. You know, that's again, that's the mind. Well, my mind, my mind rules. I've got the best mind in town. I've got the biggest fucking brain in town. Watch out for that yod. Just watch out for that yod. All I'm saying. That's one of those kind of blindsided moments. Anyway, there you go. Blindsiding moments. There's your Astro Weather. I know it kind of did bring up the thing that I was going to bring up on Twitter, but I had to use that as an example as it related to my own life, which I'm often willing to do. Okay, so today's star of the day is yesterday was just such a rich minefield of stars. My God, Stanley Kubrick, Carl Jung, Mick Jagger, and this man, Aldous Huxley. Because today's stars, sorry. If you're a July 27 person, some days just don't have a lot of interesting people. I'm sorry. Even my own birthday, I don't find a lot of the people on my birthday all that interesting. You got Scott Baio. Joan Jett's kind of interesting. Like I like her, but she interesting. Nick Cave, he's interesting, but like darkly interesting. Tommy Lasorda, like so. My day is like a weird day. Not everybody has like, oh hey, I'm born on the same day as. Right? So here you go, Aldous Huxley, Mr. Brave New World. Mr. Brave New World. You know what's interesting about this chart to me is the sort of the depiction. The Brave New World is, of course, the pinnacle of Huxley's work, and Huxley, and along with his brother Julian Huxley, were said to be members of what's called the Fabian Society, and the Fabian Society also included people like H.G. Wells and a number of other British intellectuals who saw themselves as the intellectual, philosophical, and mental elite of the British registry, and in many cases of the world, right? And so through their ideas with the Fabian Society, they would come up with all these wonderful schemes and plans and artistic depictions of what they think the world could and should be, right? And so when you look at Huxley's 11th house, right, this is an interesting look into the intercepted house. Now, I know that using whole signs and equal houses and all the spinoff on the Hellenistic stuff is very in vogue and has been for a while. But you won't get this inside those systems, right? You won't be able to understand that the intercepted house here in the 11th literally represents a secret society in his chart. Now, there's also not just a rumor, but it's also been alleged that the Huxleys were eugenicists. Don't you think it's interesting that the Cosby family on TV was named Huxley? I think that was absolutely intentional. That's the anti-eugenicist kind of statement. All right, so we have Mars in what? Aries. And what is Aries? It is an offshoot of Arian. And we have the true node in Aries. So if I was going to do a draconic chart for Aldous Huxley, it would be almost exactly the same. And this was a man who operated from a place of pure intention and will. across all platforms of his human existence, for better or worse, but it's all hidden in there, right? The occulted or the occluded 11th house. And he is definitely in a bit of a form of conflict here, right? We've got the square to the sun. I'm sorry, square to Mercury. But those, again, the Mercury square are ideas that are, well, I wouldn't say the radical, but they're ideas that are confrontational. And when I look at his chart, I knew this idea of soma, whatever the it's the thing that keeps them anesthetized, right? So we have Jupiter here on the ascendant, and it feels to me like that is part and partially connected to this whole idea of soma in his own life, because Huxley wants to expand his identity, right? What does he do? He goes to Mexico. He takes mescaline and psilocybin with Maria Sabina, writes The Doors of Perception. That's the expansion of the idea of self. And he's got this kind of semi-wide, but nonetheless a conjunction with Jupiter and Neptune. So he's got it, right? He's got it inside himself. And, you know, I wonder how much that journey, because again, he was interested in drugs. Like Huxley was interested in drugs. He was interested in the distribution of drugs on a social level so that they could anesthetize people. But he was also interested in drugs and what they could bring to him in terms of his own philosophical pursuits, which you can see here, right? Even though Jupiter is in Gemini, the ruler is still Sagittarius. So he's, again, highly philosophical. He's got Venus right here at 0 degrees Cancer in the first house. So yeah, he's a man of ideas, but there's also a very, I would say, sensitive and very feminine side to Huxley. So he's not all Mars, right? His Mars is hit, it's occulted. I would say for the most part, in a lot of ways, he has a very feminine chart. And Mercury here, you know, in Cancer, in the second house, very interesting. It's retrograde. So he's also a bit of a historian. He's looking backwards into historical epochs and eras and trying to discern and pull things from the past, and even, you know, pharmacologically from the past, the ancient traditions. And we have a sun in Leo, which is going to throw him kind of into experience. And in the third house, which makes him very Gemini-like in terms of his own pursuits. Of course, he's a Gemini rising. And then down here in the fifth house, he's got a ton of Libra going on. But again, it is occulted, right? It is hidden. So it's in this area of the chart that there are parts of Huxley we don't see. We don't see or have lots of great details about his marriage, relationship, children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? It starts off with Chiron and Virgo, and then it kind of resolves itself in this radical Uranus. And he's got this moon. He, in a weird way, he's got a tortured chart. He definitely, he comes out of, you know, peerage and being elite. His father was, you know, another sort of, I think he was part of the royal physicians or royal medicine or whatever they call them in England. Like that's what he descends from, right? So he descends from some degree in line of peerage and royalty with Leo. It's a very interesting chart in a lot of ways. An Aquarius on the midheaven, so he's going to do things that are kind of revolutionary and futuristic, and Brave New World is that, right? And he is really kind of mapping out how things are going to go. In between him and Orwell, you know, we're kind of living in a hybrid of 1984 and Brave New World. And Brave New World is the soft, gummy dispensary version right, of 1984. And Aquarius is definitely engaged in things like science fiction in the future, et cetera, et cetera. He's written other works, but those two books, The Doors of Perception and Brave New World, are the landmarks. And it's through the Doors of Perception that Huxley also initiates and brings in the psychedelic era. He makes it respectable, right? He's sitting there trying to articulate his ineffable experience. So there you go, Mr. Star of the Day, Cliff Huxley. Oh, no, Aldous Huxley. All right, we're going to jump on over to 15 minutes. But before we do, I want to thank you all for being here. And you know what I never do is please hit the like and the subscribe button and leave comments. I always hear people who do shows mention it. I never mention it. And I really appreciate the mods who do mention that inside a chat. So if you can do that, that would be great. That helps with the algorithm. And tell your friends, if you like Astro Weather, tell your friends about Astro Weather, and they can look at it live, or they can check in on it sometime during the day because it's here. Unless it was yesterday's show, which was it yesterday or the day before? Day before. I had to delete that show. Anyway, this is where we're going to be at 9:11 a.m. And again, if you are looking to stay in the game and improve your health and add things to your health regime, I highly recommend CBD as a part of your medicinal toolkit. And my buddy Chris at True Hemp Science has some of the best CBD I've run across. Period. And the story. He's a mad scientist. He does things with CBD that other people just don't do. He's got blends and strains. He's an alchemist. That's what Chris is. So if you go to truehempscience.com, you go in there, truehempscience.com. You go in there and you spend $100 or more, type in 15MINS. That's 15MINS. And guess what you get? You'll get free product with your shipment. $150 more, get you free shipping, and you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you have any questions about the product, you can go on his site, make an appointment. He's happy. He is happy to tell you about what they do and how they may be of benefit to you and your daily health regime. All right. That's it for today. Thanks for being here. Have a great Thursday. Tomorrow on this channel, it is the return of Russ Winter. And we're talking paddleboard mysteries on ponds on Martha's Vineyard. Russ Winter is kind of a true crime guy. And he's also kind of a political, social deconstructionist and researcher. And here's where the two intersect. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's show. So please join us here, 12 noon for the Friday Forecast, where my good friend Russ Winter shows up, and we'll be diving into the Martha's Vineyard pond mystery. Until then, have a blessed day. I'll see you.